In the previous module 5 and 6, there was a presentation on the aims of teaching sciences in senior secondary schools with a special reference to international context and also in Indian context. So we have more or less come to know what are the major aims of teaching science in the school. And today we'll continue the same theme, aims of teaching sciences in senior secondary schools, with proper its linkages with the upper primary and also the secondary level of educations. So welcome to this class. Usually science curriculum must reflect all the aims and objectives of teaching science, or aims and objectives of science education must be reflected in the curriculum. So curriculum should be so rich, enriched, so that it can fulfill all the aims and objectives of the science educations. And I just would like to refer here these sentences. It is taken from the NCF 2005. A good science education is true to the child, true to life, and true to science. So a good education is true to the child. It has to be for the child, true to life, and that education, science education, knowledge must be related to the life of the children or of the learner. And true to science means all the scientific, accurate informations, accurate concepts are to be included. And this a simple observation leads to the following basic criteria of validity of science curriculum. So the science curriculum, we can say it's a valid, or it's a rational, or it's authentic or genuine if that curriculum has these 6 basic criteria of the validity. It was mentioned in the previous classes too, and it was a part of second semester. Here, for our general understanding, we'll see this matter once again. So the basic criteria of validity of science curriculum, it has to have the cognitive validity, content validity, process validity, historical validity, environmental validity, and ethical validity. So these 6 validities, if it is there in the curriculum, and that curriculum, that's a science curriculum, we can say it is a rational one. It's very genuine. It's a bona fide curriculum, or it is very sound. It's logically and factually the sound. That its quality is very good. So these 6 validities are reflected in the NCA 2005, its book. And the cognitive validity, it's just for a revision, we have already done. Cognitive validity, it is related with the, in the curriculum, the content means the subject matter, process, language, and pedagogical practices means the style or the strategies of instructions adopted by the teacher, or we can say the different resource materials, methods, principles, explanation, etc. used by the teachers. So these are to be at the cognitive level of the learner. It should be matching with the cognitive level of the learner, and it should not be um, it should be according to their age and the need and the and also the psychological factors, creativity, etc. All these are to be included in the cognitive validity. And next is the content validity, and the content validity, here it is that point is being missed. In content validity, the content or the subject matter in the curriculum is to be with the correct scientific information, and all the content should be simplified. It has to be expressed in a simple manner, and it should be free from all kinds of trivialized or free from the flaws, misinformation. And plus there should be informations which are accurate, but meaningless information should not find the place in the curriculum. So that comes in the content validity. And process validity, process means the learners must engage in the acquiring the different methods and the processes that lead to the generation and validation of scientific knowledge. And it must nurture the natural curiosity and creativity of the child. So a process validity, it should give lots of varieties of methods and processes for generation of scientific knowledge, plus to do the validation of the scientific knowledge also. And historical validity, somewhat in the previous classes we have already dealt this part, that in science is to be a science curriculum has to have lots of information from a historical perspective also, so that the learner will appreciate how the concept of science evolved over the time. It also helps the learner to view the science as a social enterprise and understand how social factors influence the development of science. Then next validity is environmental validity, and it requires that science be placed in the wider context of learner's environment. That environment may be local, global, enabling him or her to appreciate the issues and the interface of science, technology and society, and equipping him or her with the requisite knowledge and skills to enter the world of work. So the curriculum, there must be the coverage of the learner's local environment, and the scientific information given in that curriculum must touch the local environment and also the global environment. And it has to be the curriculum has to be arranged in such a way so that the learner will requisite knowledge and skills to enter the world of work. That is means vocational importance. Then sixth one is the ethical validity. Ethical validity, the curriculum should promote the values of honesty, objectivity, cooperation and freedom from fear and prejudice. And it also should inculcate in a learner the concern for the life and preservation of the environment. This is somehow we have already dealt in the module number 6. So now in this presentation mainly we are going to see how the science curriculum and the aims of that science curriculum, or the aims and objectives of that science curriculum, is there in the senior secondary stage of education, or secondary stage of education, upper primary stage of education, and even in the primary stage of educations. In the syllabus, it is already mentioned about the aims of teaching either physics or biological science or chemistry at senior secondary stage, and its linkages with the upper primary and secondary stages of school education. But this upper primary also finds its stepping steps from the primary stage. So in the primary stage, first we have to see what type of objectives are being formulated for teaching the science, because that will frame the foundation for the upper primary stage. And whenever the objectives or aims are formulated, the content, their pedagogy, and even how the assessment evaluation can be done, whether the formulated objectives have been achieved or not. So what type of assessment is to be done? So that is also included actually. So here we are discussing I'm going to present only the objectives of the science education at primary stage. So first one is the first aim or objectives of teaching science in the primary stage of education, primary classes, class 1 to 5. So it's to nurture the curiosity of the child about the world, and that world may be natural environment or artificial environment and social environment. Second, to have the child engage in exploratory and hands-on activities for acquiring the basic cognitive and psychomotor skills through observation, classification, inferences, measurement, etc. So this our learners in the primary stage, they have to be engaged in the exploratory activities. They can explore something new for themselves, and for that hands-on activities with their hand, they have to do certain activities, scientific activities, so that they will develop their cognitive aspect also, and with the hands-on activities the psychomotor skills also will be enhanced. And the process involved in the this cognitive and psychomotor development and observation, classification, inferences, etc. So these terms are not so new to you. All this will be dealt in the next bullet in detail about the process skills. Then third objective of teaching science in the primary education, primary stage, is to emphasize design and fabrication, estimation and measurement as a prelude to the development of technological and quantitative skills at the later stages. Later stages means maybe upper primary, secondary or senior secondary. So the curriculum has to be designed in such a way, it has to be fabricated in such a way so that the learners, they will make the use of the process of estimation and also measurement. And this is for the it will form the foundation for their technological skills and quantitative skills, which they are supposed to acquire in the later stages, means during upper primary and secondary and senior secondary stages. Fourthly, in the primary stage, the learners must develop their language skills, speaking, reading and writing skills, not only for science but also through science. The science has its own languages. So a learner will be learning the language, basic skills. While learning the science, through the science they will learn the language skills, speaking, reading, writing. So this is very interesting. Number 5 is science and social science should be integrated. So here in the primary classes, there is not separate science subject and social science subject, but both are integrated. And as a broad heading, the environmental science. So environmental science, it is a mixture of science and social science. And in that environmental science, one of the major component of that curriculum should be the health, their health. And even NCF 2005 has highlighted on the what type of assessment has to be there in the primary stage. 6th point talks about it. No formal periodic test on the primary level, no awarding of grades or marks, and no detention. The children will not fail. So this is about the objectives or aims of teaching science in the primary level. And same thing now in the upper primary stage, because the primary stage gives the foundation for the upper primary stage. So in the upper primary stage, the main objectives of science education are aims and objectives of science education. The learners should be engaged in learning the principles of science. Now see the concept, facts, and now principles of science through familiar experiences and working with the hands. So not by mugging up. They have to work, they have to go through these familiar experiences to learn the principles of science. For that, the learners, they will be able to design simple technical units and modules. For example, designing and making a working model of a windmill to lift the weights, a working model of electric fan, working model of lungs of the human being, working model of this one, how if water level increases a certain level, then the alarm will be there. So that type of different types of working model or technical units or technical models students can prepare, like how to do the rainwater harvesting, then how to make the this electrical bill, etc. This type of working model students can prepare in upper primary stage, means 6, 7, 8. Second, continuing to learn more about the environment and health, including reproductive and sexual health through activities and surveys. So in the aims and objectives of teaching science in the upper primary stage is to make the learners more aware about their environment and the health. And in the health, mostly their reproductive and sexual health are to be emphasized, and they can learn all these aspects through certain activities, that means project work, and they can by doing the surveys, by visiting the certain locality, maybe hospital or related to the society, certain activities to know about the environment and the health. like in the environment, certain problems are going on about the drug abuse, alcoholism, lack of balanced diet, uh, and environmental pollution, like that. No, that type of surveys they can do. Thirdly is the scientific concepts are to be arrived at mainly from activities and experiments. That was already told in the very beginning of this objective, that all these scientific knowledge, should not be acquired by the learner just by reading it, which is given in the textbook. It is not so. They really have to uh, do the experiments, or they have to perform certain activities. Then only they can come to conclusions about that scientific concept, or they will give the concrete knowledge of the scientific concepts, scientific principles. And this upper primary stage curriculum should be framed in such a way there should be the group activities, discussions with the friends, peers, and also with the teachers, survey work, organization of data. After doing the survey, they will come with the information and how those information can be organized and how this can be displayed through exhibition, etc. in the school and neighborhood should be important components of pedagogy. So here exhibition also the students can organize, or the school can organize, like a survey, like in biological sciences we can take the students for the field visit to see, to observe the different flora, plants which are available in a particular locality. So from there they can take the photography of the plants and they will acquire some more informations, and those things can be displayed in the exhibitions. So they are doing the activities also, and from there they are gaining the scientific knowledge also. And this NCF 2005 highlighted what type of evaluation or assessment can be done in this upper primary stage. That also they have mentioned that assessment should be continuous and periodic both, and being periodic like unit test, term end test, etc. And system of direct grade should be adopted, grade point A, grade point B, something like that. No detention. Up to class 8 the students cannot be detained, cannot taken them as a failure, so they will pass. So every child who attains 8 years of school should be eligible to enter class 9. So this was suggestions or recommendation was given in 2005, and I think this part that the students up to class 8 they are not going to be failed. So then from class 8 smoothly they can be promoted into class 9. So that practice was done, but somehow the impact of this practice was not so healthy, and very recently this last part, that every child who attains 8 years of school should be eligible to enter class 9 without any examination, that has been, I think, changed. So this is the old version only, it is written here, and we should be knowing what is the latest position also. The latest position, now they have to write the exam even in the class 8. So now we move to the secondary stage. In the secondary stage, what type of aims and objectives of science education is there? So here it is very clearly mentioned that students should be engaged in learning science as a composite discipline. Composite discipline means here science, physics, chemistry and biology, it has to be integrated form. Even in this upper primary also science is integrated subject, and even in now this secondary stage means class 9, 10. So there also science is to be taken as a composite discipline, not specialized or separate disciplines. So number one, the main objectives or aims and objectives of teaching science in secondary stage is to enable the learner in working with hands and tools to design more advanced technological modules than at the upper primary stage. So in the upper primary stage we talk about that, like they can prepare the model of windmill to lift the weight, etc. And now in the secondary stage they can continue the similar type of task, but the label of their work design has to be more advanced than that of the upper primary stage. And another aims objectives is that the science curriculum should enable the learners in different activities, participate in different activities, and also to make them able to analyze the issues concerning the environment and health, including both reproductive health and sexual health. So this is very particularly it has been emphasized because in this secondary stage the students, they are in adolescent age, so that time they should be knowing about their own physiological system and also their immediate environment. Then next objectives is the systematic experimentation as a tool to discover or verify theoretical principles. So like in the science textbooks, various theoretical principles are incorporated, or the content in the curriculum is very rich, lots of theoretical principles are embedded. But these theoretical principles, again, it is not only to be acquire the theoretical knowledge, but really in reality the students, they have to do the experimentation systematically, and they can come to the conclusions, or they will do the validation of that theoretical principle, or they can rediscover that theoretical principle. So that means practical work. Until and unless they do the practical work of the theory which they have studied in the class and in the laboratory, it has to be practiced in reality, and they will acquire the solid knowledge about that principle or theoretical principle, scientific principle. Fourthly, working on locally significant projects involving science and technology. So in the secondary stage, the learners must be able to work on locally significant projects involving science and technology. In this stage, students can take the responsibility of doing the certain project work, maybe the solo project, single project by a single individual, and or the group project. So it depends how the curriculum is being framed. and those projects should be related with the science and technology. This board exams at the secondary stage, regarding the assessment part, board exams nowadays it is being practiced, theory of 80 marks and practical of 20 marks, or in some state board they are having this type of distribution, 70 theory marks and 30 practical. So this is not being recommended by NCF, but this is how the different states, different boards, they have distributed the marks between theory and practical for the assessment part. And lastly, in senior secondary stage, that means class 11 and 12, the science curriculum must be able to imbibe among the learner the following facts. The science should be introduced as separate disciplines with emphasis on experimentation and also technology and problem solving. So in class 11-12, science is to be introduced as separate disciplines, means physics becomes separate, chemistry separate, and biology separate. And lots of experimentation and technological and problem solving activities are to be there. Secondly, students of 11 and 12 or senior secondary level students may be given the option of choosing the subjects of their interest freely, though it may not be feasible to offer all the different subjects in the every schools. So it depends what type of combinations the school can keep depending upon their infrastructure and other facilities. They can opt like separate physics, separate chemistry, and separate biology, different subjects, and some schools may offer all these three subjects along with the other subjects, and some schools may keep only two subjects along with the other subjects. It depends, it varies from school to school. Okay, then thirdly, the curriculum load should be rationalized to avoid the steep gradient between secondary and higher secondary or senior secondary syllabi. So this is like if in the secondary school syllabus, if it is very light, not much, then suddenly in the senior secondary the syllabi is very heavy. So in such cases the student will have a steep gradient, means it's very difficult to them to grasp. So the curriculum is to be rationalized. So it should not be so heavy or it should not be too light also as compared to that of the the differences between the upper primary to secondary and from secondary to senior secondary, in terms of their syllabi, there should not be very steep type of differences. So it has to be a gradual one. So like in primary, okay, a little bit, then upper primary, a little more than that, but that can be bearable by the learner. Then in senior secondary, little more, and in senior secondary, the more. but that difference must not be so steep. Otherwise it will be too heavy, and the +2, the students, they will not pass, they'll fail. Okay, then next one, the objective or aims and objectives of science curriculum is that the core topics of discipline, taking into account the recent advances in the field, should be identified carefully and treated with appropriate rigor and depth. Means the content, subject matter, the topics in the discipline, in both physics, chemistry, or in biology, they are not all the outdated information has to be there, but the recent advances in the field should be first identified, and it has to be well explained with proper rigor, meaning strongly, without any flaw, and in depth, the deeper type of studies. So this type of topics, core topics are to be included in the science subject, all three science subjects. Next, the tendency to cover up large number of topics of the discipline superficially should be avoided. So this is also an important point to be noted, that usually in the like a +2, now the syllabus has to be vast, and that time the curriculum framer must be aware of that thing, that the topics which are included in that subject, in that particular discipline, should not be superficially implemented. Superficially means only a little bit of information of here and there about that particular advancement in the field of science and technology. Not only that, but it has to be dealt deeply with much depth and rigor. It's the connection with this point here. And this, how do you do the assessment of all these objectives in the senior secondary? And this is not given by NCA, but it also depends upon the board to board, like CBSE board, ICSE board, or state board. They have their own parameters of assessing all these objectives achieved by the learner. So here board examination, theory plus practical will be there even in the +2, and as in some board they are giving 80 marks to theory written part and 20 marks for practical. So these are all about the objectives of the teaching of science, with special reference to senior secondary stage and its linkages with the secondary and the upper primary stage. So this is very simple. You can you can pause this picture and reflect on it, and some of the points you can note down also. So lastly, this information I have taken from the NCF 2005 as a concluding note. In that paper it is written as an outlook, and in the outlook first they have emphasized that in Indian scenario, how the science education, what is the position of science education. Is it as par with the goal which is being enshrined in our constitution? So NCF 2005 have highlighted, no, it is still far from achieving the goal. Secondly, science education in India does not encourage inventiveness and creativity. It has developed only the competence but not the inventiveness and creativity. Thirdly, 2005 observation, the science education was overpowered with the examination system. So these are drawbacks even in the previous class also we have already learned. And here the science curriculum they have mentioned is an instrument for social change. And textbooks are a very important instrument for equity. And equity means it can be utilized equally by majority of the school going children. So NCF 2005 also finds out that there must be encouragement for writing the alternative textbook, incorporating lots of activities, observation and experimentation, connecting it with the world around the child. Maybe some of the textbook or most of the time here information based, only information is given, activities are not included. And nowadays, but if you see the NCERT book, you will find lots of activities along with the information, it is there. So being a science teacher, we must emphasize in those activities also. Usually some teachers may avoid that part, only they will teach that theoretical part. Activities they avoid, that should not be there. And in the curriculum there should be the provision of lots of project work. Even in the textbook also it is to be written in that way. And really in Indian scenario there is a dearth of such type of textbook or such type of reading material with rich visuals, especially in regional language, it is not there. And in the school there should be the science corners. If there is no science laboratory, at least let there be a science corners and science experimentation kits, and if possible laboratories, even in the rural areas. And science learning is to be equitably emphasized. And NCF has also highlighted the role of the ICT. ICT, information and communication technology, is very important tool for bridging the social divides. ICT should be used in such a way that it becomes an opportunity for providing the information, communication and computing resources even in the remote areas. Now also some of you are in the remote places like in West Sikkim, Geling. Some of you are there. So with the help of this ICT, you are connected. We are able to pass the information and communication is possible. Like that, ICT, use of ICT is being emphasized even the secondary education and senior secondary education system. And this ICT can be utilized not only for information, communication and computing resources, but also connecting the children, teacher and the scientists who are working in the universities or the research institutions. Main purpose is of this is demystifying scientists and their work. Like many scientists, they are working in the universities as professors, and some of them are working in research institutes. And I earlier in the previous class we have already discussed about that. There is a myth that the scientists, they used to wear the white long coat and be there in the laboratory, always doing the experiment. It is not so. The scientists, they are working as a teacher in universities, and also they are doing their research work in the research institutions, and such type of collaboration or communication can be done with the help of ICT. So in Indian scenario, the qualitative change is very essential. It has to be a paradigm shift. This rote learning is to be discouraged. Inquiry skill are to be strengthened by using proper language, design and quantitative skills. There must be the provision of co-curricular and extracurricular activities related with the science. And these activities must stimulate investigative ability, inventiveness and creativity among the learners. And if possible, the science and technology fairs exhibition can be organized even at the national level, and it is being organized nowadays. And all these activities should give a wave of creativity and must develop a scientific temper among the young students. Not only the young students but even the teachers. So teachers also must have a wave of creativity, a scientific temper along with the students. So lastly, it has talked about the examination reform system, and examination system. For that, what should be the clear-cut design and the pattern, it hasn't mentioned, but it has given certain high important points related to the improvement or reformation of the examination system. And for that, the teachers are to be empowered. And finally, it has said that all these reforms suggested by NCF 2005, it is implemented, then it will be surely give a cascading effect in all stages of science teaching in our schools. So cascading effect is a process. Once it is started, it proceeds stepwise to its full, seemingly inevitable conclusions. That means the success is sure. The success, what the values about the science education has been enshrined in the Constitution of India, that will be fulfilled. So with this, the class is ended. Thank you.